And joining us now for more is Democratic Minnesota State Senate President Bobby Joe Champion, whose district covers downtown and southeast Minneapolis. So I want to pose to you that same question I just posed to our reporter Luke Barr, which is we have all seen these quite disturbing videos coming out of Minnesota. They're very distressing to watch. And President Trump today in the briefing room, he said they're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody. You know, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake sometimes. It can happen. I want to get your reaction to that comment from the president.
Well, first of all, Selena, thank you so much for having me today to be able to speak on behalf of Minnesota and also my district. The comment made by the president is just a way of not coming full circle around admitting that ICE has been pretty destructive. They've been aggressive, not with anyone that they claim to be criminals or those who are committing illegal actions, but they're doing this with lawful protesters, people who are just sitting idly by, blowing a whistle or observing what's going on, or people that may be following them because they would just want to make sure that they continue to be lawful. We know that ICE is detaining U.S. citizens. We're not even talking about immigrants. They've been so aggressive and so the acts have just been illegal. They've been going to residents, let's say even in my district, where they arrested a person and claimed that they had a warrant, and they didn't have a warrant. So a judge said, wait a minute, you cannot do that, and you cannot enter and break in people's homes without a warrant. And so there have been tons of examples where the ICE agents have been wrong. I'll give you another example. We had a Lao man who was taken out of his home, half naked, and his 5-year-old and other children were watching. And you know, it's bitter cold here in Minnesota right now, as you have seen in the rest of the country. They detained the man, found out that he is a citizen. They wrongfully arrested him. They wrongfully detained him, but they never apologized for any of those actions. So we're seeing a number of different things that they're doing wrong.
And we were just showing video of that incident you were talking about where the man was dragged out with that robe and his slippers and his undergarments. And you were also near the scene where one of your constituents was shot by an ICE agent in the leg just 1 week after Renee Good was killed. Now, DHS alleges that the person began to resist and violently assault the officer. What do you know about that incident and the person who was shot?
Let me tell you that I believe in transparency and full disclosure. And whenever you hear something from DHS, you can't believe it, right? And that's unfortunate that there's this notion of trust or distrust, I will say. Even when you think in terms of Renee Good, we've seen a video where she wasn't trying to run over anyone, but yet and still, we've been saying, let there be a full investigation, allow the federal government to also do a joint investigation with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. So all the information and evidence gets on the table. As it pertains to the specific incident that you're talking about here in North Minneapolis, we are hearing a very different story from what DHS reported. That's not unusual because DHS have constantly said things that are untrue. And we do not stand by violence. We do not stand in the way. And in fact, when you think in terms of the subpoenas that you talked about earlier, the governor and Mayor Frey and others have been very clear, including Mayor Herr. They're very clear that they are not trying to stop the actions or the work of ICE. They want ICE to behave legally and do their job. Our law enforcement here in Minneapolis and St. Paul are incurring lots of expenses, resources that should be used for other things are now being used to manage these unfortunate situations where ICE is aggressive and attacking Minnesota. And there's over 3,000 ICE agents here. And just to put this in context, between Minneapolis and St. Paul, there's no more than 1,200 to 1,500 law enforcement officials.
Minneapolis Mayor.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to jump in and say, you know, we spoke to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, who said that ICE is asking for IDs and passports of people if you happen to just look like you're Latino or Somali. Is that what you're seeing? And just what is the level of fear and distrust among Minnesotans right now?
That is the level of fear that we are seeing. ICE agents are racially profiling. Even citizens are being encouraged to carry documentation because if you look Latino, if you look Somali, or you look like you're from another country, if you're Asian, you may be a legal resident, right? You may be a citizen. But we are seeing even people who are not people of color. But also, let's say, for an example, Susan Tincher, who was in my community because she was protesting, they arrested her. So that has caused fear. Where's that fear showing up? People are not going to school. You see our children because they've also been in schools. Camden High, North High, Roosevelt High, where kids are afraid to go to school. So they've gone to online learning. Restaurants, people are afraid to go to restaurants, not just workers, but we're also talking about patrons. We're seeing so much fear where people are not going to church and they're afraid to go other places. They're not going to the grocery store. We, as a community, have to get food to them and shop for them and do all sorts of things. But guess what? We're doing it under the cloak of fear because of the unfortunate and illegal acts of ICE. That's what we are seeing. That is true. And we have very concerned children, adults, immigrants, as well as people who were born and raised here in Minnesota, like a person like me. I have to carry ID as well.
And I'm hearing stories from people on the ground there about how they're afraid to leave their homes, or they're helping community members get to the grocery store, get food to their homes. I mean, what impact is this having on the local businesses? And you mentioned people aren't going to restaurants. There's an economic effect as well.
Absolutely. I had a chance because besides being president of the school, I'm also the chair of Jobs and Economic Development. So I meet with a number of business leaders. Last week, I was meeting with business leaders, both small businesses and larger businesses, and they told me that workers are not coming to work. Their restaurants and other retail organizations are not receiving clients in their spaces or people who want to patronize their business. And that has an economic impact because who's going to be able to survive it? Let's also talk about the workers who are afraid to go to work, who, even though they're legal, they're not going to be able to pay their bills. That also hurts landlords. I mean, it's such a domino effect. And I believe it is really intentional by the federal government, because if it wasn't, why would we see subpoenas? Why would we see a surge of ICE agents here in a medium-sized state? We're not a large state. And we're seeing these effects in schools, in daycares, and we are concerned all the way around.
Senate President, and you are saying that you are going out carrying your ID. I mean, given that this is what the precaution you're taking, I mean, what is the advice that you have to Minnesotans, even people who are U.S. citizens, to your point? People could be profiled. What is your advice?
Well, first of all, I tell all of them to be calm, right? Because we know that ICE looks for any reason to pepper spray them or to arrest them or to be rough with them. So I often tell people to be calm because I don't want us playing into the hands of the federal government. I believe that this is provocation. I believe this is what they want to do. And so I'm advising them to be calm and thoughtful. We had a town hall meeting this past Saturday where it was 100% virtual because there were a number of people who wouldn't come out. But a part of that town hall meeting, we talked about knowing your rights, why the local police department can't protect our citizens by arresting ICE agents. We talked about ways that neighbors can help those who are afraid to come out or at home, and those families who might face deportation for whatever reason because they don't have to do anything wrong. Someone could just have a mere parking ticket. But if they're racially profiling, that means there's the possibility that they could be separated from their families and they don't have lawyers. So we have to do declarations of parental authorities. We have to do other things that help them plan for just in case that they are detained.
Minnesota State Senate President Bobby Joe Champion, thank you for joining us.